see the water in wall over there. I could change it.
Right.
They
Now,
didn't prove it for it. How they could make the water better. I don't know what the end is about. I don't know how to do it. Somebody's going to have to figure out something. Can you appreciate it? People are going to start putting back in the time. Yes. A lot of people waste it. Staying in their fertilizer. There's a lot of them. I thought the neighbor one. Why do you put fertilizer? He said, well, I don't want to do this. I said, you don't have it. Why do you put that? They thought about grass. You want to do grass? You're right. That was Texas. They don't know what grass is. They got to think about grass. People are kids. They do it. And the water is going to become more and more about it. There's a lot of people that call it right now for this. They don't have paper. They don't have things. It's the same with I do water. You talk about recycling? I recycle in front of them. So I don't do it. No, why should I do it? No, I don't know. There's money to be made of this. Where is it? Okay. Stay no place. Raise rates. People start staying in a shower for an hour, 15 minutes. Don't wait a minute. Some kids 8 hours. Stay in the air conditioning. Actually, give me work. They got me out of air conditioning. The kids just know. Me, when I was 84 years old, you want to take your school out. People don't do anything. That's what I mean. You're in a position to do it. You want to get comfortable. Nobody wants to be bad. And they wouldn't do it. Is he going to solve all the problems? I would for him. He would make sure you know it. He stuck on a lot of people. They have like one. You got another lady from I don't understand why he had the journals. He went to Sunday. He had this week. He had that other. I got to pull him out of trust. Then you have fire department. You don't have the water in the tower. They shut off the water in the tower, it's ran or it comes from. You got water. They can't shut it. Oh, it's good.
What makes you believe that?
Huh?
What makes you believe that water
They
is going to
do.
come?
You don't have any water like that.
That's correct.
I think you got water.
You may have a lawsuit, but that doesn't mean that Hammond can't shut the water off and there's no
They
foundation.
shut the water in the house too. We did.
That's my advice to me.
No, it lawsuits like that. Everybody's suing everybody. If I fall down in a restaurant, I think it's a whole lot. Today, people fall down and hang someone. I can't read a hot cup of coffee today. No, that's ridiculous. Somebody's got to sit down and say, we got it. You're going to sue the police department, the fire department? Well, they shall. Yeah, they should have one of that. I don't have a water. They want to say, I don't have it. Not cheap.
with your card. When I go up there and talk, just hold it in your hand like this, okay?
Chicago's water is more wholesale than the water we get right now. Chicago is who jacks up the rate and we follow. Chicago jacked up the rate January 1st. This increase is because Chicago increased the rate. Chicago, if you go to Chicago City, Chicago's website, and look at their water rates and what their city council has already approved, that in January 1st, 2012, they did a 25% increase to $2.51. January 1st, 2013, a 15% increase to $2.88. January 1st, 2014, a 15% increase to $3.31. January 1st, 2015, and a 15% increase to $3.81. So Chicago is raising their rate every year on January 1st. Everyone that uses Chicago water at exactly the same rate that they have here. And Hammond, Indiana, 1 month later, increases the rate to 88% of Chicago rate. To put a pipe into Chicago, to take water from Chicago, would make Chicago's water with the cost of the pipe even more prohibitive than Hammond with the cost of the pipe.
We're going to have to go further to get water, it's more expensive. You want to get it to the west, they're having a problem. I can't think of anyone else near Big Lake.
You cannot increase the size. You get water from Lake Michigan any other way without forming a job. Because we were a customer of Hammond, Indiana, the South Suburbs formed a job of the mayor of Martin was the job. And job stands for Joint Agency Water Agreement.
Joint Action Water.
Okay, I was close. Joint Action Water Agency. We were excluded from any of the discussions. We're never allowed to partake in any of it because we were already a customer of Hammond. They were going to buy their water raw, meaning untreated from Lake Michigan, directly from Hammond, Indiana. If you read the papers and look at it, that Java has brought that the first cease to exist because all the participants except Markham, I believe, have pulled out of it. But now because that Java has fallen apart, we met with Hammond 2-3 weeks ago. Hammond is now looking at, because they issued these large amount of junk bonds, that they need to sell water in Illinois in order to pay the bond off. And I have no idea what the proceeds of the bonds were used for, but it was $36 million and change. Hammond recognizes they cannot sell water in Illinois unless they deliver to you themselves in a pipe at a rate that's 88% of Chicago. If they're 88% of Chicago and then you throw another $1.20 in to deliver it, it's to the point you can't afford it. Too many people cannot afford the cost of this water as its projection, its rate of increase is. And I'm concluding these papers directly on Chicago's website because I pulled this right off their webpage. Now, the last one that they passed, because they do it in 4-year blocks, was in 2011. But once this, they'll revisit 2016, they're not going to miss a 15% increase every year. And they've got a 25, 15, 15, 15% increase. And there's nothing you can do about it. The laws in the state of Illinois, so long as Chicago charges every single customer the same size, the same rate, they can charge anything they want for water in the state of Illinois. There is no citizens utility board to protect you, there's no ICC to protect the consumer in the state of Illinois at all.
hold it in your lap. Don't pull it.
Litigation occurred with Niles versus the City of Chicago. Niles versus the City of Chicago is the case that gives the City of Chicago the ability to do what they're doing with water. And there is no protection from Indiana to Illinois on water. Could you state your name and address for the audience and record for the clerk?
Charles Dieringer, 150 Grace Lane, Chicago Heights. Actually, I attended those college hearings, and I think this is wrong in terms of backing down and not calling it something on the side. I don't think it was normal above board transparent kind of thing. I'm here because of transparency, and I think Chicago Heights and all our communities around here need to look at transparency, and I end up for you tonight. The FCC, looking at the internet, is trying to mess it up. I'm sure that this is just information. I'm sorry, to make a little information about transparency. In the meantime, I wanted to talk a little bit about and I didn't come to discuss water, other than I think that's just opinions on it, and I've done a lot of research. I mainly wanted to explain about this internet issue that the FCC is thinking about analyzing our resource and being able to tell that the internet is supposed to be and has been most nearly the great equalizer by making us first and voices and as important as well-being society. And we need to be involved and be more than open. We want to see the strong meeting last night. The first ever, the biggest thing we have on the website and go and look at it. It's called Chicago Heights Post. Mayor and I had a discussion about one of your topics, which is the library over Fort Heights. But I think we need to carry that further and look at Fort Heights and some of the communities around here that we organize and prepare for growth. We have to discuss it every day, but I just think it's time now to start moving on and preparing ourselves so that we can make our communities more efficient. That's why I wanted to talk to you briefly. We have to speak about things that are going on. I'm actually going to be a voting candidate for my oldest child in it turned out because the United Church of Christ has taken up the issue. And it has to be on my bulletin.
Me personally, as a trustee, I'd like to be considered.
Absolutely.
Just let me know that that's my.
I do belong, I am a peace and justice person. Thank you.
It went black.
Oh, it did? It's okay. That's all right. You can push the button and it's still recording. It's still recording. As long as that light's flashing, it's recording.
I see, I didn't get no picture. I just got a little bit of picture.
That's okay. It shuts off to save battery power. Move up there.
Does anyone want to answer that question?
The question is, you looked at anything else yet? Or we gotta go alone, no? Well, I'd rather go alone, look at anything. Marcus, let me answer your question. Anything else? I get to talk too. Hold on one second. You asked the question. Please allow me to answer, of course. You asked if we're gonna go it alone. I don't think so. Would I go without Chicago Heights? Yes. I have been happy to do
This
this.
is not about Chicago Heights, and again, my question is not, not a loaded question, I think, because I do know the water is the new oil, right? I mean, this is what it is.
That's right.
My concern, however, is we're spending this water, this money on this study, and then eventually, I mean, we spend this money and it doesn't work out, you know, maybe we can avoid this front cost by looking at what some of the other people are doing, and then, you know, proceed from there. Also,
You asked if we had looked at any other alternatives, and the answer is yes.
besides some of the.
But you didn't ask what they were. I might ask you, sir, do you have any ideas?
You know, I don't know.
You know, if you have a better alternative, please speak up. You're a citizen, you're gonna make a way to help.
I'm trying to speak up, but again, I'm able to explain play, right?
You know, well, I'm just saying, it's been
I'm not trying to
7
take
years.
a switch or
talking
anything,
about
I'm just
it.
asking
And I
a
just,
question.
you know, if you've got a better idea, please answer. Please
Adam, I've been looking at
Sit up
this
here in
water
front.
thing with your staff for a very long time. Chuck knows me pretty well and knows that this is a burr in my staff. We knew that Ron Daniel was gonna raise the rate for water, a lot of us knew. And that's why the village of Glenwood tried to negotiate a separate agreement. And we probably would have been successful in a separate agreement, but Hammond refused to talk to us until they talked to Chicago Heights. Because Hammond, much like us, believed we had an equity partnership in the pipe. Now, it appears that we didn't have an equity partnership, or we would have had a lengthy litigation with Chicago Heights. But either way, this board decided that we didn't want to be a minority owner in a piece of infrastructure with someone we don't trust, meaning the corporate authorities in the city of Chicago Heights. I personally don't trust them to maintain that pipe in the best interest of the customers that it serves. And as such, we need to find a different alternative for water. Chicago is not an option because there is, the cost of putting a pipe in Chicago is inherently prohibitive in itself. Our own source of water out of Lake Michigan was broached to mayors at the Illinois Municipal League 5 years ago or 6 years ago by me with Joe Berry president, and the mayors at that time had already committed to improving their infrastructure to take delivery of water from Oak Lawn. They did not quite grasp the fact that if they put a pipe in from their community to Oak Lawn, they could always put the pump at the other end and pump water to Oak Lawn. They're committed to it. And that's across the board in the South End. Almost every community west of us is improving their infrastructure to take the higher priced water from Chicago, pass through Oak Lawn at a steeper price than we're paying with the delivery and their bond cost. They're passing the rate along to their customers, period. They're just passing it along. They're not doing anything proactive. There are rumblings and rumors, if you talk to the well people, that a lot of municipalities are looking at wells as an option. But do they go public with the fact that they're doing it? No. They're looking at it, and I think they'll wait for someone else to do it so that they can come back and say, well, look, if they did it, their water's now $1, $20.
So, again, I just trying to get some understanding of this, but even if the water went up $1.20, which I think that we should have probably gone ahead and just made the increase maybe $1.30 as opposed to $1.20, since we know that it's going to go up a little bit higher, and you know, so we got to keep going back and forth. Our water now per 1,000 gallons wholesale costs what to the village? No, that's
To the village,
$3.30 to the village. So it costs $3.30.
And $1.10, and, well, let's say $1.13 or $1.14 to deliver.
And $1.13 per 1,000 gallons. So, and then the residents are going to be paying, because I'm sure $1.20 is going to be tacked on to $7.73.
Correct.
$8.93. So I guess my point after asking these questions is, even though we go to this new water system to decrease the cost to the village as a resident, are we going to see that savings as a resident on our water bill?
Certainly mine. No, we hope so.
So you guys are saying you're going to
If we
decrease
have
our
enough
water?
well water in storage and it's of good quality, we could sell it.
Not on this well because it's shell well.
It's
You'll be
an
lucky to supply your own.
It's not enough.
We're not built for that.
So, shoot.
What I asked the board to do, and that's why I want to do this in two parts. I want them to do what we did in 2007, and that is break the water billing down as to what its actual cost is to operate the system. That for maintenance and your operating costs, and then you take the cost of water, those three things give you a bill for water, and then you have your sewer charge on top. We haven't done that since 2007. And when you see if this board chooses to do an alternative of well water and your treatment cost and retiring the infrastructure cost, if there is any. If Nelco is perfectly willing to design and build a system just for the reduction of water, you're still paying for it, you're just not borrowing money to pay for it. That water rate will be reduced and you will be paying in your water rate for that infrastructure. But at some point, it will all even out. And at that point in time, that same exercise that's being done in the next month by this board or committee will be done again with a well. It is not our intent to charge if we're paying $1.20 for water out of the well, treated, why would we charge a resident assuming it's $4.50 or $4.93, whatever the number is?
Yeah,
That would be $1.20 would be our wholesale cost for water.
I'm sorry, but I think at the very minimum, if that was in a perfect world, all that came through, the price wouldn't increase for.
Oh, yeah, if you did this and you didn't decrease it, you should be castigated by the public.
No, I understand, but I think what he's saying is that we'll see a decrease, and I'm assuming that yes, it would, but at the very minimum, it wouldn't increase on the, whatever what the increment is now, wouldn't continue to go up.
We want to be willing to go back.
Right, exactly, so.
You have a contract that's not exclusive with Chicago Heights for delivery and acquisition of water. If by, let's say, 40 communities go up in Lake Michigan, and much like the price of gasoline, Lake Michigan's water prices go down because these wholesalers now need you. All you have to do is open a valve.
Right.
You're gonna go chase the cheapest water.
So our contract with Hammond, we have.
We don't have a contract.
So what prevented us from dealing directly with Hammond?
Because Hammond wanted to negotiate with Chicago Heights first. They knew Chicago Heights would be difficult to negotiate with.
So have we reapproached Hammond now?
When by the time Chicago Heights and Hammond were in court, we were negotiating with Chicago Heights over what the future of this pipe is. And Chicago Heights had a position that they owned the pipe and we were a customer. The agreement that was penciled in 1983 did not have clear language in it that I thought it was pretty clear that we had an equity ownership in it, but there were people that believed that the language wasn't clear enough that gave us a position we could defend it for. So we became a customer and we were subject to their negotiating. And their negotiating was from a position of weakness. They went into a meeting with a 57.5 cent wholesale price of water, were offered $1.20 for 20 years and said no, because we're paying 57.5 cents for another year. And Hammond said the price on the table today is $1.20. Take it or leave it. Next year we can't tell you what the price will be. And Chicago Heights rolled the dice and we're suffering for it.
So are these increases that we're experiencing now, are they directly related to not having that contract with Chicago Heights? We had signed a contract, couldn't we have that?
We have a contract. We have a contract with
We
Chicago.
do have a contract with Chicago.
But not Hammond.
Okay.
We can't buy water from Hammond. Chicago Heights' contract with Hammond specifically precludes, does not allow Glenwood or any customer on their line
Okay, so
to
we're,
buy water directly from Hammond or from any other community that is served by Hammond.
so we have to purchase water from Chicago.
No,
No.
you can stop buying water from Chicago Heights tomorrow. It's not exclusive.
So our contract is, I mean, what is our contract?
That means we get more water bill.
We have
Why?
But I know number, this is what your rate's gonna be.
It's 88% of the price in Chicago.
That's just the flat, that's what they.
That's at the meter in Lansing. And then we have to pay for Chicago Heights to deliver it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason why I came here to ask the question is I hope that we continue to ask questions with other municipalities, not just run with it and just buy into this idea of what's the best thing until we see what other people are doing and not just hear what do people do in Vegas, what do they do in places where water isn't free flowing. I think that we need to be looking at some of these other places before we put such a large amount of money into a study that may not yield the fruit that we're actually seeking to get from. So that's just my
I think
take
Vegas
on
would
this
love to
one.
pay.
I beg your pardon?
I think Vegas would love to pay for it.
Well, Vegas would love to have Michigan water.
Right.
So what I'm just saying is I think that we should consider some alternatives. Thank you. Okay.
Hey, you didn't mention the garbage, isn't there garbage fee on our water?
Yes, the village takes care of the garbage.
Well, it's not a bill, I'm paying. I think in terms of, you know, when you're talking to citizens, you better include there's a garbage fee on it. And that can go up, and then your water bill goes up, and they may not understand it's a garbage. That's why we're going up. It's on the bill, it's like an out-of-pocket cost. When the insurance company says, that's not an out-of-pocket cost, you have to pay the premium, if it's coming out of my pocket, don't you just say it's out of my pocket? If you please. It is on the water bill, and the water bill can go up because of the garbage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question.
Would you state your name again, Chief?
Jean Cobian, 531 Blackstone Avenue. Do they consider the adverse effects of well water? I mean, because I have a friend who lives in Top Village, and they have well water, and they talk about how terrible it is. You know, their clothes are dirty, they can't drink the water, you know, it causes cancer. It's just so many things that are bad about well water.
I would disagree, but there's nothing wrong with well water.
But I mean, why do they do that?
Sauk Village had, just like Crestwood, a contaminated well. Sauk Village knew for years that their well was contaminated. The Attorney General of the state of Illinois filed suit in, whatever court was the Attorney General, against the village of Sauk Village for poisoning their citizens. Sauk Village, to clean their water, had to do nothing other than spray it out of a fountain. That's all they had to do, was put a fountain in a big floating, a concrete tank, and spray the water, and the chemical that was in the water would come out of solution because it was volatile.
Right.
Sauk Village passed a referendum to bring Lake Michigan water to their community versus fix their well problem. Now, any reasonable person that was in government, if you wanted to bring Lake Michigan water in, and it was gonna take 3 years to do it, would not poison citizens for 3 years. They would fix the well and then proceed on with the bringing of Lake Michigan water. So the village didn't do anything until the government literally was forced to by the state of Illinois. Ms. Nielsen and I went to one of their board meetings when this was a topic of discussion, and they went and walked the elaborate system of the users to basically remove the bulk chemical that was in the water. So there is no cancer-causing agent in Sauk Village's water anymore because the EPA, via the Attorney General of the state of Illinois, forced a remedy. And the people that are working with us on this water study were involved in that Sauk Village project and trying to get Sauk Village to take a proactive step and fix the problem immediately upon discovery. They chose as a government to not do that. Much like Crestwood chose as a government to pump a contaminated well.
No, we didn't.
The quality of a well, if one is drilled in Glenwood, will be, and I've said this roughly 200 times, at the same quality as Hammond's water or better, or it will not go in a pipe. What's going to stop it? These 6 people that you elected will stop. How would you know by testing?
It would be tested. It should go over to Melbourne and get a tour of their facility. I think you'd be very impressed.
The responsibility that comes along with well water, you gotta have that tank and.
No, we do not. No,
You don't need any of that.
there'll be nothing like that. I was here when we had the.
No, you're right.
You have to understand that then you have some people who are guaranteed, I hate to use that word, that this water is going to be okay. And we as citizens of the town have to spend money up front to test, to drill down, grab this stuff out of there, to test to see if this can even go forward. And that cost is going to be what again? $100,000.
And I mean, ma'am, just a reassurance in the fact, it's my name, this goes to the EPA. I'm not gonna go to jail, so if you see a different person sitting here, then maybe get worried, but I'm not going to sacrifice my life for giving the residents of the village of Glenwood poor quality water. So as the mayor has mentioned, and has been repeated a million times, and I think that that's gonna be the biggest point to get across to the people, is that if this isn't good water and can be produced at a reasonable cost, then it's not gonna happen. Is the village going to potentially incur $100,000 to drill the well to see if it's possible? Absolutely. Some people see that as negative, some people see it as positive. But with the cost of water continually going up, and people are struggling now to pay their bills, it's going to happen more and more and more. So I think that we are very smart in pursuing this. The mayor's been very active and one of the few that has been looking at this for 4 years. So as you mentioned before, if we do it, then chances are that other municipalities might do it. But I mean, without him saying it to the blue in the face, if it's not good quality water, it's not gonna happen.
Mr. Bullion, like you missed, I think you came in later, at the beginning of the town meeting, I was here 30 years ago. I know Nanette Greasy threw her laundry at the village board. I had no intention of people throwing their yellow laundry at me. I don't want a water softener. I have 6 grandchildren. I would do nothing to impair their health. They come to my house, I have 2 coming tomorrow, Eddie and Blair. I would do nothing, if even just for myself. And, I think the technology's changed. Back 30 years ago, God rest his soul, Lyle Irwin made fun of with several expletives the fact that the village board suggested people get a toilet, they use less water to flush. That was considered an anomaly. 30 years ago, people had landlines. Now only 14%. Technology does change. We're up against cost increase we can't control.
30 years ago, the village of Glenwood, before there was Lake Michigan water, go back 35 years ago, the village of Glenwood could have treated that well. They had 4 wells, I believe, am I correct?
3 at least.
They could have treated that water to be as good as Lake Michigan if they chose to do it. But they did a study, I would assume, and bringing water from Lake Michigan was a cheaper alternative than treating the water. But Lake Michigan water in that original contract was 38 cents or 41 cents a thousand. And the cost per thousand for the pipe was 48 cents. So it was like 85 cents a thousand for water in the beginning. It ended up being 90-some cents at the end, over 30 years. It was a good investment. The only problem they had was they didn't write the agreement with Chicago Heights clear enough to give 30 years later us an advantage in negotiating with them. Nowhere in the contract did it state that these 2 entities, this is an intergovernmental agreement, that we are partners in this. It used the language owner, it used the language customer, back and forth interchangeably. It was not a well-written contract from the position of the village of Glenwood. If we had been able to negotiate on our own and own the pipe, you wouldn't see a wall study because we'd have water at $1.20 a thousand. Because I would have signed a contract with Hammond for 20 years at $1.20 a thousand. They chose not to, and we're stuck with the repercussions of that.
Can I make one more comment?
However, we got nothing all day.
No.
Nothing more important.
You know, I don't know if they're under the impression that you're gonna go all level, or if you're gonna add a percentage.
We don't know yet because we don't know what the quality.
No, well, what I'm getting at is, you don't have to go all level.
No.
You can add a percentage.
Correct. You can blend it.
And then maybe they'll drop the rate.
Correct. If we went 50-50 on it, the rate
I
would be
think a lot of people
lower.
are under the impression that you're going all level. I don't know.
A lot of this depends on what the quality is and how the two water streams interact.
I hope so.
The EPA has stated a position, we don't agree with what they're basing their statement on, but what they are basing it on is municipal governments with tainted wells with Glenwood.
The only thing bad about the EPA in the past, especially, they went in there and said, got that equipment, but they couldn't say, get rid of it, stop putting it out. And now they're to the point where they're suing because the dogs got cancer from no water or something. This is ridiculous.
Well, my contention was that even when we discussed the blend, my question was it going to be 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, and who was going to regulate that? And will the public know if it changed? And so all of this is moved until we bring some water up and get started.
Those are policies and guidelines we have to create.
And
make them strong enough. Transparent enough.
And my only contention all along was that this is to make the public aware. That's the only problem.
That's what I was talking about, an independent party. If someone who is appointed, how do you get justice?
I can take and flush my toilet. I don't need shower water. I can take the water from the shower, put it in the tank
That's right.
downstairs.
Get a rain girl.
Huh?
Get a rain girl.
There's a lot of
No, I can take my shower water.
Yes, you could.
Put it in the tank downstairs.
We're a very wasteful society.
I know that.
And how much water do you drink a day? A gallon?
Yeah.
Water?
I can buy mine over at Cleveland, you know, water. That's fine.
So the share of your water bill that you drink is probably pennies.
Well, the only thing is, trying to get the Glenwood, or trying to get the Glenwood, those BOs water. Right now, DO is more than water. The bottom of the water, I need more than the DO. So I'm drinking, it's drinking.
Excuse me, Chuck Dieringer again, because I've been working on this issue for a long time. I actually belong to the Groundwater Guardian Association, and if you have any questions about groundwater, it's the safest form of water we have on this planet. It's surface water is vulnerable to terrorists. They could knock Lake Michigan out of service for 6 months or more. I mean, this is a good source you have here, and there's just phenomenal. But if you want to go to the Groundwater Guardian site, maybe you should have a groundwater guardian in your community too. I mean, they're all around. They're out in Nebraska, and I've been to many of their conferences over the years. But I also wanted to point out one other source that we have, which is even cheaper. It's called water reuse, which you were just talking about. We have 11 to 15 million gallons a day going into Thorn Creek up here out of Thorn Creek Basin Sanitary District. If you go to Cortland, which is a suburb of DeKalb, which I was at this summer, I have a videotape out there. That's what they do. They reuse the water. And they not only irrigate the fields, but they drink the water. And Dr. Schaefer, who is the inventor, the creator of the Clean Water Act, has developed this process. And that's one of the local places where they reuse their water. And I think there's a lot of good alternatives and besides drilling wells. But it's something to look at, because we're so wasteful, and we need to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other public comment? I would entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene in 5 minutes for the regular board meeting. Or let's take 10 minutes. Second? I'll second. Call roll.
Trustee Campbell.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Stiles.
Good.